guys, and welcome back to Left on Red. It's your girl, Sierra Claire. And today's episode is all about dating your opposite. Okay. So last week we talked about like family dynamics, breaking down how the way our family treats us is how we treat our partner. And I did a poll last week and I wanted to see what you guys want to talk about. And so the options were like red flag, green flags, dating your opposite, or is soft life really the good life? And it was kind of a tie between soft life and dating your opposite, but dating your opposite won. So I'm really excited to talk about this today because I am dating my opposite, that I feel like I'm dating my opposite. And it's been a bit interesting. You guys got a little sneak peek on the family dynamics episode, like about our communication, the way I felt about it, my own realization that my communication style stems from my family and how we communicate with each other, all that good stuff. So we're going to dive in today. I found an article on women's health about dating your opposite, and this doctor, she like breaks it down and it's really good. So we're going to break down this article. Then I'm going to share with you guys a little bit more about the guy I'm dating and how I feel like we're opposite, and then just the pros and cons of dating your opposite and if you should. So let's dive right in, okay? This article is called "Do Opposites Really Attract? Experts Weigh In," and it's written by Corinne Miller. This was published back in 2020. However, I still feel like it's really relevant. Okay, so they go in the article and they start talking about the phrase "opposites attract." Now, I want to hear from you guys when I upload the reel for this episode. Do you guys think that opposites really attract? Are we really like attracting people like opposite of us? Because I feel like we naturally attract people who have similar interests, whether that's friends, relationship, like romantic. I think we naturally attract people that have similarities in us. However, in this article, it says, now, she says, when it comes to romantic compatibility, many people think of similarities, which is true. And these similar traits can certainly increase romantic compatibility. However, it can always backfire on some couples, which I think is really interesting. Because if you and your partner are both alphas in the relationship, you guys are going to butt heads. And I agree with that. I feel like I'm a bit more alpha, like, my way, the highway. We're doing it, it's Sierra's way, it's Sierra's world, which is not always like the best thing. But I do feel like when you are dating another alpha, it's really hard. Naturally, I think I'm a bit more extroverted. I'm a bit more like social and like wants to talk to everybody, and I'm down to just like be out and about and like make jokes. And I've dated other extroverted people. And have you guys ever been around two extroverted people? It is like, I don't even know how to describe it because you're just like bouncing off the walls at that point. So I do think when you're two alike, it can backfire. Now, she goes on to say many important aspects of the relationship, especially like your personality traits and preferences, are a much better fit when they're opposite or complementary of each other. Now, I I do agree and a bit disagree. I do think that my thing is like personality has to mesh. Like it has to be very much aligned. Like if I have a more outgoing personality and the person I'm dating is like completely like not outgoing, quiet, shy, I think that can backfire as well. So she goes in to say, do opposites really, again, like, do they really attract? And she says that no two people are identical. So while we do choose people who are similar, some differences manifest and it may feel sort of like opposite-ish. So the phrase, do opposites attract, doesn't automatically make it true. So the deal is more, you have to find like your person, right? Like if you're a partier, like dating a homebody, does it work? Night owl, early risers, like these are the examples they're giving in this article. Can this work? And she says that the truth is that most people aren't attracted to their opposites, even though it might seem that way. And I think like naturally, we are not attracted to people that we deem as our opposite. We're like, we don't even want to be around them because if you're different than, and this is for friendship and romantic. I'm going to mesh them together in this part and then separate it. But like, think back to when you were in school, like making friends. you naturally gravitated to people who looked like you, share similar interests as you, because you deem them as like more comfortable, more acceptable, right? Now think about now you want to be in a relationship. Okay, I want to date somebody that may share the same culture as me or has the same background as me or has these different traits that I have, versus when you think of somebody who's like the opposite religion of you, opposite race of you, you're kind of like, well, they wouldn't understand. And you start kind of breaking it down. So I do agree that most people aren't attracted to their opposites, even though it may seem that way, like, oh, like we're so opposite, we just attract each other. Because deep down, we want to gravitate towards people who have a similar interest or a physical, like a physical look to us. So I don't think opposites really attract. And the article goes on to say pretty much what I just said. Like we tend to gravitate towards people who have a similar interest to us. So opposites really don't attract. However, again, it's subjective on the person who you find. Now, there was a study that was published, and it says it took info from 1,500 couples and friends and acquaintances and surveyed them on their values, attitudes, and personality traits. And the researchers found that these people had a whopping 86% of similarity on all those factors. Okay. So again, your value, attitude, personality, like all of these things, they have to somewhat relate to each other, because then you won't like it. I don't think it's gonna work. And of course, I'm gonna spill all about the guy I'm seeing and if how I feel. So we'll get into that. As we go down more into the article, and this will be linked to in the description of the podcast, so you guys can read it yourself. But down in the article, it says, are differences between partners likely to cause problems? Now, in this article, the doctor says couples who consider themselves as opposites are not necessarily any more prone to disagreement or conflict than those that connect more around similarities. So even if you guys are opposites, you guys can have the same, if not more or less problems. So there's no, like you guys aren't more prone to issues. It does say, now when you think of your partner as your opposite, you probably focus more on the obvious things like clothes, what you like, what you do when you're off of work, instead of more, but you need to factor in more stuff like attitude, preferences, values, beliefs, and communication styles. Now, I 1,000% agree. It's easy to say we're opposites because like he likes sports and I like Bravo TV, or he's, white, I'm Black, or, he's Catholic, I'm Presbyterian, like all of the obvious, like the very much obvious things. However, I do think we should be looking at, if you are dating your opposite, or if you're dating anyone, this is like really for anybody, even the person that you're similar, you need to look at your values, your beliefs, and your communication style, because those are the things that are going to factor in and make or break the relationship. Not if he likes basketball, not because he wears flannels and you don't like flannels. No, it's more, what do you guys value? And for women, when you choose a partner, you need to be choosing their values, not if you like them off of physical attraction, not, just all of the physical things like, oh, I think I really like him and he listens to me and I think I might love him. Like, what are his values? Does he value his family? Does he value himself, the work that he does, how he treats you, how he treats others? What are his beliefs? Do you guys share a similar belief system? Do you guys believe in the same way when you guys want to have kids? Are you guys in the same belief system? Just about the basic fundamental things. And then last but not least, in the article talks about the communication style, which I 100% agree, because if you are a bit more like me and you like constant communication, but your partner is like, I can go 3 days without talking and I'm okay. And like, they really do mean like they're okay. Like they're not talking to anybody else. Like you actually like trust them. You believe in them. Like they're just genuinely like, I can go a few days without talking and I'm fine. That's something like, that's a place where you're like, okay, you know what? We have different communication styles. Can we compromise? And if you guys can't, that may not be the person for you, because relationships are about compromise. Even when we want to be selfish a lot, you just can't be. You have to compromise with the other person. So instead of focusing on the obvious things, the article says focus on preference, belief, communication, and attitude style. Because even though they may be your opposite in your interest or your backgrounds, you guys can really align on your values and may see eye to eye there. So the article ends, it pretty much wraps it up saying, how can I make a relationship with my opposite work? And now this is like really good because this is what I'm going through. So we're gonna like read through this together, guys. So it says you can also think of your differences as a way to learn more from your own personal growth. Okay. So be curious about them, communicate with the person about their differences. If your partner is super outgoing, for example, maybe that will slowly push you to get out of your shell a little bit more. Now, she also says if you can communicate and find common ground and compromise, okay, key word here, compromise, then there's a possibility of figuring out the workarounds besides the larger aspect of the relationship, and it can be really rewarding. It comes down to these three things: communication, clarity, and compromise, which are required ingredients in every relationship. I'm going to say it again because I love that so much. It comes down to three things: communication, clarity, and compromise. Key ingredients for any relationship. So if your partner loves to go out late, but you rather be in bed, compromise on making dates that are both comfortable, that you guys are both comfortable with. And then she goes on just to explain a little bit more in the article, obviously like mutual trust, respect, caring, but even if you guys are opposites in backgrounds or a little bit of your interests, if you guys share the same values, the same attitude, and are willing to make it work, it can work. And I love this article because I feel like every other article was like, if you guys are different, it can't work. It's done, it's over. And I think that's like a lot of the advice that sometimes we get even from others. Like, if you're so different, how can you make it work? And then you get all in your head and then you spiral like me. So I think it can work. I'm currently going through it now, so we'll see if it does work. But I do like that article, and I think it can work if you find a person that aligns with your own values. So let's talk about my experience and kind of like what I'm going through. So let's just start with the obvious like opposite things, right? So I'm Black, he's white. I'm Christian, he's Jewish. He's like a non-practicing Jew though. He's not like in church or anything. He's just like, he grew up Jewish, so he identifies as Jewish, but he's like a non-practicing Jew. Um, he likes sports, I don't, right? The very basic things of the obvious, like, okay, we're a bit different in that aspect. However, I'm more extroverted, he's a bit more introverted, like a bit more introverted. I would walk into a room and I would want to talk to different people. I'm like, hey, how are you? What's going on? Like, kind of get the ball rolling. He's more like laid back and a bit more chill. However, like we kind of like we mesh in like sense of humor and like, I don't know, like he's just as, if not maybe a little bit more funnier than me, even though I'm more, I think, outgoing than him. So we mesh in like how we talk to each other, like communication, just like, I don't know, we have a good sense of humor and we like get along that way. And that's like, we enjoy talking to each other about different things. And I feel like when we talk about the different things that we want and our values and like alignment, I can definitely see the difference. Like, I grew up a very different way than he did, and not values like basic things. Like, I actually like his values, and like he values like his mom and like his family and himself, and he really cares about his friends, and he's just such a like loving and giving person and like really appreciative. And I'm the same way like with my family, but I think I'm a bit more like selfish and he's not. And so like when I talk to him about different things, I'm like, maybe I could do this, that. Like, I feel like it's a good like compliment to each other. Like, I'm more like, let's go, let's do it, da 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 da. And he's like, well, like, take your time, think about it, like, be logical, like, like think of like the different scenarios, etc. And at first it scared me because I'm like, we're so different in the way, in the obvious things that I named prior, right? But maybe I'm just too like mean, or maybe I'm just too selfish and he's not that way, or just, like we just grew up so different, da, da, da. But like, I think like the more time we spend together, the more time I like want to be around him and like want to be with him. And he's just not like anybody I've ever dated. I like to go for people who are similar to me that feel like home. And I did a reel on Instagram and I stitched another creator, and he was like, if you're consistently dating someone who feels like home, you may have a pattern that you want to address. And he was right. I have this, I guess, sure, like this pattern. So I like dating people that feel like home. Home to me, as I said in episode 10 of Family Dynamics, feels like chaotic, high energy, intense, very like, I don't know, very like passionate, I guess, but it's very like intense. And I don't think I thrive in that environment, but I know how to work that environment, if that makes sense. And because I'm used to like chaotic, disorganized, like fun, crazy, like loud energy, that's what I consistently look for in other people. And I'm like, if you're not loud, if you're not crazy, if you don't have this spark and this like intense energy, you're boring and it's not going to work. And this guy is the opposite. He's not chaotic. He's not intense. He's like the most normal guy I think I've ever talked to. And at first I thought, this isn't going to work. It can't work. I am too intense. I need like I need someone to match this alpha energy, which I don't even like saying, like more like it's just like this chaotic energy. And I was talking to a friend about it, and he said, Sierra, you've consistently dated people like that, and where has it gotten you? Nowhere. And he's right, it hasn't. I've also dated people that were a bit more like reserved, like the guy I'm seeing now. But even though they were more reserved, they were just as like they were F boys, they were just as like, crazy in different ways, I guess. So this guy he's not chaotic, he's not loud, he's like pretty practical, just average, funny, really sweet. When I say average, I mean just like you're like normal, like a normal guy, not just not any mind games, not, I don't know, he's just like stable and secure and like not erratic, just very much normal. And that freaked me out. I will not lie. That freaked me out because the thought of dating someone who didn't feel like home was hard. And in last week's episode, I said, when you date someone, not when you date someone, but when I had to look at what home was, I had to realize that home was a bit toxic in some cases, of like maybe the way we talk to each other and the way we treat each other and all different, maybe it isn't the best way to talk and treat each other. And I'm kind of like shedding this old way of thinking. Like, I have to have someone who's like my family. I have to have someone, who has the same like culture as me, or has this as me, or that as me, like all these things, like me, like me, like me. I'm shedding that mindset and being more open to dating someone obviously who isn't like me, but that like complements me. So your girl is growing. She's growing up. And I mean, so far, so good. Like, we're in a good place, like with communication. And I feel more, I think when it's your own insecurities that start to project, then obviously you start to kind of spiral. That's what I was doing, like my own insecurity of like, I don't know if we're gonna like get along or if we're gonna like be butted up, but just I'm at this point where like I like where we're at, and I'm just gonna go with the flow and see what happens. And so like right now we're in a really good space. So that's my experience with like dating your opposite. It can be done. It's patience. If you're like me, where you're shedding an old way of thinking, it's very hard. And you have to work at it every day, but it can be done. And that's the space I'm in right now. It's just shedding that old way and just like opening up to be more open and like more accepting and focus on the things that matter, not the obvious, like he likes sports and I don't, or I'm Black and he's white. More of like foundation wise, like, do we align? So I'll keep you guys updated, as you know. But moving into the last segment of today's episode, the pros and cons of dating your opposite. Now, some of these are my pros and cons. Some of these are what I found. So let's like really dive into this. So your pros of dating someone that's your opposite. And I love this one. Their strengths complement your weaknesses and vice versa, which I like. Like if you are really strong in one area and they're not, you guys can just complement each other really well. You'll get more comfortable with compromise is the second one, which I 100%, that is me. I before never liked to compromise because I dated people just like me. Like, so we didn't like, we were always butting heads. Like it was always like, it's like, it's my way or it's his way or da-da-da. Like compromising was really never a thing in any other relationship or situationship that I've had. Like compromise, what is that? But with this guy, I remember we were talking if like a week and a half ago about, or maybe like 2 weeks ago at this point, about like the whole communication thing. And his response was, okay, like, let's find a compromise and we'll just keep trying it out, like, you know, until it works. And I was just like, oh, you know, like, I don't know. Like my response was like, oh, because I thought it was going to be either one thing or like, I thought he would either be like, okay, like we can't have this work. Like it's not working. Let's end it. Or I thought he would say, okay, I will do, you know, exactly what you tell me, which I know are like two very like extreme like responses. But again, I'm like all or nothing. It's black or white. Da, 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 da. Like, no, I've never been an in-between person. But his response to immediately like find a solution and just say like, we'll try like until it like we'll find an area that works like really good for us and like that we're happy with. I'm not used to that. And so I think the pro is you get more comfortable with compromising and finding a happy ground for both parties. Number 3, you'll teach the other new things, which is really good. If you date someone that's just like you know, doing the same things over and over, like you may not learn anything new. Number 4, now this is something I got off online. It says you'll stretch your understanding and empathy muscles, which is really good because I think for most people, our understanding it's not limited, but it starts at our own beliefs, right? Like what we believe and what we can understand in like within an eye shot, right? But when you date somebody who's your opposite and may not perceive things the way you do or understand things the way you do, you start to get a different perspective, you gain more empathy, and you understand things that you may not have thought of. So I like that one a lot. Another one, you'll find more balance, which is great. And then the last one, you'll gain more patience. You gain a lot of patience because when you're used to not dating your opposite, you like the patience you have when you date someone who you deem as your opposite is greater than somebody who is like similar as you, because you guys don't have like a lot to be patient about because you guys aren't patient, you know, but you gain way more. Now, into the cons. If you guys are opposites, you're more prone to disagreements because, you know, you guys may not understand each other. Again, you guys may not have these similar interests or the similar belief or etc. Like whatever it is, you may have a little bit more arguments. However, as the article said earlier, you're not prone to more just because you're opposites. You probably have the same as somebody who's dating somebody similar. However, I do think when you're opposite, you may have more disagreements, maybe not arguments, but you may have more like discussions on trying to figure out exactly why the other person's upset. Now, this one is really good. This one I got from the internet. It says a lot of energy is needed to navigate and negotiate partners' differing needs and interests. And I do agree. When you're dating someone who is your opposite, a lot of energy / time / patience is used on navigating and negotiating what your partner's needs and wants and their interest in making time for it. And I wouldn't think that's a con, because I think if that's the person you like and you want to be with, it just will come really natural. Like you would want to make this time and this energy, like you want to put in the time and energy to find out how they express their emotions, their feelings, their communication, what they like, and like work around it because you like being around them. Now, if you are starting to resent the relationship, etc., then it doesn't make it fun, right? But I think when you like the person, it will flow naturally. And then the last con for this just segment, relationships can become unsustainable in the long term when the early excitement wears off. Now, I don't want to end on this sad note, but let's break this down. It says relationships can become unsustainable in the long term because the early excitement wears off. Now, I think when you start dating someone who's your opposite, there's a little bit, now it can go one or two ways. It can be excitement or it can be scary. If it is exciting, you're like, oh, this person's my opposite, but like we mesh really well and they have this that I don't have. And like, you start kind of like find like, it's just like, it seems more exciting than scary. And then it goes into scary. So there's two ways it happens. It goes exciting to scary or scary to exciting. If it starts out the first way, exciting to scary, like once it weighs off, again, I think it has, like, this person has to be like somebody that you like and you want to put time and energy into. Because like any relationship, when the early excitement or the honeymoon stage, like whatever we want to call it, when that wears off and you think about it long term, you have to think, and this goes back to the article, does this person align with me in beliefs, values, communication, attitude? Yeah, we're different and the excitement of us being different has worn off. However, can we sustain with our fundamental values? And as long as you guys can do that, it can be long term. You have to put in the work. As long as you put in the work, you'll be fine. But you have to want to. The other person has to want to. And in any relationship, excitement or honeymoon wears off to an extent, but that doesn't mean it's over. So I'm going to end on that note about dating your opposite. Okay. I know it was a bit of an episode today going through everything, but I really want to know, what do you guys think? Do you think it's sustainable to date your opposite in the long term? Okay. Like how we ended the episode. Can it work long term? Do you have anybody in your life? Are you dating somebody that you deemed your opposite, that you guys are still going strong? What do you guys think about today's episode? And we're going to get into all the things. So I will see you guys in the next episode. Let me know what you think. Remember, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. I love that you guys support the podcast, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.